Yeah, I think in the moment it's quite easy to get lost in the fact that, you can really screw up. Now the way that I look at it is really sometimes you win and sometimes you learn.
Hello everyone and welcome to the very first episode of You in the World, proudly presented by Business Lighthouse. My name is Andrew, I will be your host. And before we get into the really good stuff, just wanted to give a bit of a story and context about a few items. Firstly, our name, You in the World. This actually comes from a quote from Dr. Christopher Fuchs, who's a physicist from UMass Boston. And the full quote is, "It's not about you, it's about you in the world." And this quote is surrounded by all kinds of quantum physics and metaphysical concepts about the nature of life that we don't really have time to get into today, unfortunately. But essentially, he's talking about influence and saying that influence is potentially one of the greatest things we can do with our lives, having a positive influence on those around us and the world as a whole. And we here at Business Lighthouse believe that a great business can have far more influence than just one individual on their own. So we really wanted to create a platform for local business owners to come on here and to tell their story, where they've come from, the highs, the lows, and where they're going. Hopefully have a few laughs along the way and to open up an opportunity to learn from each other, because I think there's always something to learn from other people's stories. So I'm very proud to introduce our very first guest. He was absolutely champing at the bit to be our inaugural guest here on You in the World. I have here with me Terence Toh from StrategiQ Business Growth. Terence, how are you doing today?
Hey, Andrew. Thanks for having me on as your inaugural episode as your first ever guest. And looking forward to it.
Not a problem, mate. We're looking forward to having you as our guinea pig. So we'll start putting you through the paces straight away. Why don't you give us a little bit of an overview about what you do, Terence?
People would call it business coaching, I guess. I work with a lot of emerging builders and trades business owners, really to help them to, there's kind of three main outcomes that we're looking for. We're really looking to grow profitability, increase the amount of control they've got over their business, and really just grow their business and grow personally as well, if that makes sense, develop themselves personally as well.
Good stuff. So straight off the bat, you've mentioned those three key areas or pillars. How did you arrive at kind of putting those three together?
One of the, approaches that I've really taken is building things from foundations up. And so when I first decided to go into the business coaching world, I'd already been, running businesses for 20 years. And I kind of thought, well, I need to make sure that I'm really clear about what we're trying to do, how we're going to do it, all that kind of thing. So actually, I invested a lot of time, money, resources, you name it, into actually modeling everything that we do. So we've probably possibly got more models than we need, but really this, the three things that I've mentioned really come from one of the core models that we use. Pretty much our entire system is built from that helps us to get results for our clients.
Well said, well said. Terence, I want you to imagine that your work journey or business journey is a superhero film, okay? So we want to know a little bit about the origin story. How did you get your superpower as a business coach? You mentioned you've had a lot of experience running businesses.
There's a lot to unpack there, isn't there? I think as an entrepreneur, let's say, I started my business journey at the age of 19, and it was essentially after I'd quit school and got my first job at 17, and the workforce just didn't work for me. Let's just put it that way. So I quickly found that I really needed to go and do my own thing. My entrepreneurial journey kind of started very quickly. Along that journey, I did some things okay. Quickly found myself within the first couple of years running 6-figure and then quickly into 7-figure kind of businesses. But I made a lot of mistakes. I made so many mistakes. If you want to call it a superpower, I think there's a couple of things that's allowed me to kind of bring to the table. The first thing is just experience. I've experienced all of the, what happens when you screw up, fairly consistently, and then how you need, some of the things that you can do maybe to fix that or to learn from that, let's say, right? Because you can't always fix it. I think one of the things that I really discovered is that, I say that there's lots of people out there who promise the world and deliver you an atlas, right? And then you get other people who are really genuine because, I had some business coaches along the way, some mentors along the way who were really, really great and some not so great. Interestingly enough, they all helped me. So I learnt something from every single one of those people. Sometimes even someone who doesn't have the experience you're looking for can teach you a lot still, right? Even if it's what not to do. And I don't know if I'm answering your question properly. If I was going to summarize this, I'd say one of the things that I could consider being a superpower now, and I'm just thinking about this now, is that I actually care. I've been through almost going bankrupt. I've been through divorces. I've kind of just scraped through, and then I've had some big wins and big successes. But I think one of the important things is to really care about the people that you serve.
Well, I tell you what, I reckon caring is a great superpower to have, Terence. Yeah. And in terms of caring in coaching, I mean, I look back on sports coaches and teachers, we might call them coaches, and the best ones, and I'm sure you agree, were the ones that really cared and really went above and beyond.
And there's a whole lot of other stuff to go with that, and you can unpack, and you can start talking about empathy and all these other things. And, I love all that stuff.
Businesses all around the world, we've all come through COVID or are still going through COVID. Can you talk a little bit about the impacts that has had on your neck of the woods, or, the people that you work for as well?
In a business sense, there's been so many different impacts. I would say on balance, it's been a positive impact. COVID is an interesting beast because the biggest negative impact has probably been on people's mental state.
Yes.
There's been plenty of, financial disasters out there due to what's happening. We definitely can't deny that. In the builders and trades side of things, and in Australia in general, things have been quite strong. In fact, it's probably created a lot of opportunities in the market. For instance, back in 2020, in about March, when things really started to kind of hit here, there was a lot of panic. I had a lot of anxious clients, to the point where they really were almost in this panic mode. I'm like, what am I going to do? Going back to experience, I lost quite a bit of money in the dot-com bubble. I grew a business through the GFC. And so instead of panicking, I was looking at where the opportunities were. And there were some big opportunities at the time. Some people out in the market, for instance, who were looking for work, who would not normally be looking for work. There was some amazing talent out there at the time. If you're looking at it, from a specific kind of perspective, there was a massive amount of opportunity. COVID hasn't made life easier for anybody. There's no doubt about that. I guess it depends on what the approach has been for a specific business. You can generalize a bit, but some businesses have done extremely well because of it, and some businesses not so well.
Great summary. We were talking about kind of key figures or mentors in your business journey. So you can name them if you want. Do you have any, major kind of contributors or people that have changed the way that you do things? This might not be a personal relationship. It might be kind of like a writer or a content creator.
I feel like I've got a lot of really great mentors, and I've got some that are in real life mentors and have had a big impact on my life. I've got a lot of mentors, I think, who are either living or not living, not with us anymore. I've got a big library of books and things like that. And what I think is great about the world today is that you can learn anything that you want to, right? And you've just got to go and find the right books. So I think one guy that had a big impact for me, who's an Aussie guy by the name of James Schramko, he's in New South Wales. I spent a bit of time trying to really develop myself personally, and he was the guy that kind of helped me to sell my last business. I came up with this 2-year plan to sell this business. I'd been in it for a while, probably 9 years or something like that. All right, I think I'm done. I was working with James at the time, and the business sold within 3 months for more than I was hoping to sell it for. And that completely changed my life. And that's kind of why I became a business coach. And up until then, I'd probably had a lot of other mentors or not so good mentors or business coaches or whatever the case was. I think he deserves a mention. He's a really nice guy as well.
Well, he's going for the bookshelf, people.
I've got a whole lot of books here, right? If you want to learn about marketing, you can learn from Dan Kennedy. You can learn from Seth Godin. If you want to learn how to focus on what you're actually doing, you can learn from Cal Newport, right?
I'm reading that one right now myself, yes.
Books like Think and Grow Rich, absolute must reads. I can see Scaling Up, Vern Harnish. I feel like I've had the privilege of having so many great mentors, and some of them I've never met, and some of them are not even alive today.
Many inputs is what I'm hearing. One last thread I wanted to pull at a bit was you talked a lot about making mistakes earlier. Can you tell us a little bit about your changing relationship to mistakes or, things that didn't quite go right and how you kind of think about it now versus in the moment?
Yeah, I think in the moment it's quite easy to get lost in the fact that, you can really screw up. Now the way that I look at it is really sometimes you win and sometimes you learn. And I think the most important thing is that in the case that you don't win, you really take that lesson and look at what that lesson gives you. Because that lesson is a gift. You should be grateful for it. So back in the dot-com bubble, I was about 21, had my first child on the way. I didn't really know what I was doing, to be honest. So I was buying futures and options and things like that. And I was making about $2,000 a week as a 21-year-old back then when it was actually worth something, right? And I thought, this is amazing. I'm never going to have to work again. I did that for a few weeks and everything's going great. And then all of a sudden, everything just crashed. Everything fell out from underneath me. It was about $30,000 within the space of about a week or two, right?
Oh, wow.
What can you be grateful for from that experience? Well, firstly, I had $30,000 to lose. Not many 21-year-olds can say that.
True.
Secondly, that one experience has taught me so much about myself, about the way that I make decisions. I literally had stops in place. So I had everything in place to take me out of the market to protect me from what happened. And I overrode those stops. And so I learned a lot about self-discipline. I learned a lot about how to filter my decisions better. I learned a lot about who to trust because I was on calls with the brokers and they were saying, oh no, you're fine, until all of a sudden I was losing a whole lot of money. I said, no, you need to get out now. And I would say that $30,000 lesson has probably made me hundreds of thousands of dollars since. That approach of sometimes you win, sometimes you learn, as long as you understand the lesson.
I think lifelong learning is such an important concept to really recognize that it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop at the end of whatever formal qualifications you might have, or it doesn't stop when you go through a certain benchmark or earn a KPI. It's always going on. So just trying to keep open to it. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about life outside of work a little bit. So what are some things that you do for fun and for self-care? And do you have any tips for being able to switch off from the 9 to 5?
I can tell you what I do and some of the big shifts that I've made, because one of the other things I have learned is about self-care. I mean, I know that we only met in person recently, right? And you're probably not aware of this, but in my late 20s, I was over 100 kilos.
Did not know that, wouldn't have guessed it.
Most people totally would not have guessed that. And now I hover probably around about 80 kilos or something like that.
He looks like a lightweight boxer, everyone.
And I feel a whole lot better. The first thing I've done is probably got a lot more comfortable with being uncomfortable. Consistently getting out of my comfort zone. And that could be anything from I learnt how to mountain bike in my late 30s. I kind of learnt how to snowboard at the same time, and I learnt how to surf when I was about 40. Or it could be I started doing the cold shower thing. On the weekend, I just came off a 36-hour fast. And I think all of these things really kind of reset your ability to do things properly. And just give you last weekend, I did my fast, and I went out for a good solid ride, and I really just needed to reset, and I took myself off social media completely. Like I literally didn't look at my phone for the entire weekend.
Oh, how good.
How good is that, right? We seem to be addicted to either always having to do something, always having to eat something. There's this almost an addiction to consumption. And I can't speak for everybody, but I've had that for sure. Someone that's been over 100 kilos, well, that's an addiction to consumption, right? And so just being able to get away from that and actually reset your system occasionally, that's been really helpful for me. And I find that every time I go for a ride, that's a reset. Every time I go for a surf, that's a reset. Every time I do a decent fast, that's a reset. I think when you're talking about becoming more healthy, becoming happier and all that kind of thing, it's a list of ingredients. It's not just, one specific solution. That's probably 1, 2, 3 things.
So these things, sounds like they help you be your best. And I think when you're your best, everyone else benefits. Your clients benefit and your family and friends benefit. Would you say so?
I think it's overused these days, but that whole thing about you're in an airplane and the whole thing's going down and you need to put your own oxygen mask on first. Like I said, I think that's overused, but it's kind of true. In fact, it's one of the things that I find that a lot of clients struggle with. I can empathize because I've struggled with it before. There was a time where I really felt guilty taking time out and doing things for myself. Now I realize that the only way that I can serve my clients at the highest level is to take time out and do things for myself. Because if I'm 100 kilos plus and, not feeling up to the task the whole time, then how is that going to reflect on the way that I serve my clients? I mean, there's definitely been a mindset change in terms of my approach to looking after myself, making sure that I'm healthy, making sure that I'm well conditioned so that I can actually serve other people better. And also, I've got lots of kids to look after as well, right? And being able to spend time with them and being able to run around with them, play whatever it is, play basketball, ride bikes, whatever the case is. Like, they want to do all that stuff. They want to go swimming. They want to do all that kind of stuff. They don't want to sit around on the couch the whole time, although sometimes you'd think so, right? Sometimes they just want to sit around on the couch. But the majority of the time, they'd prefer to get out. Quite often, if they're just sitting around the couch, it's just because they don't know what else to do.
Is this an area that you kind of coach in as well in terms of mindset and self-care for your clients, or is it a little bit out of scope?
I try to stick to the business side of things as much as possible. I try to stay away from mindset and, all those things as much as possible. In saying that, I find myself regularly coming back to the fact that there are certain things that they need to do outside of work to make sure, like, if you want to be successful in business, then business cannot be the only thing that you focus on.
Wow.
Don't get me wrong, you can be massively focused on business, but if that's the only thing, is that really going to make you more successful in business? If you let your health go, if you let your relationships go, if you let everything else just go, and I guess that comes from the fact that I made that mistake. I let my health go. I let my relationships go. That's no one else's fault. That's my fault. And really, a lot of it had to do with the amount of focus I was putting on my business, on my working life, on the fact that, success was, to me, related to the business. Like, the business was my entire life at the time. And I think that doing that damaged my relationship, definitely.
Thank you for sharing that, Terence. Good to hear that you're looking after yourself when you get the opportunity. Maybe I'll have to introduce you to a float tank sometime in the future, see if that works for you.
Willing to give it a go.
Out of the comfort zone. Hopefully you're not claustrophobic.
Not that I know of.
Good stuff. So looking ahead now, what are you working on at the moment, and where do you see strategic business growth going in the next 5-10 years?
Really excited about what we've got going on at the moment. It took us a little while to get to the point where we really understood what our ideal client looked like and all that kind of thing. And so strategic business growth is the business, but what we've really been focusing on is the building profit side of things. So we've got programs which are the building profit programs, and they're focused on builders and trades, business owners, and all that kind of stuff. We want to do everything that we can do to help our clients succeed in areas that they don't necessarily know how to succeed. What I've found is that one of the key areas that builders and trades need help with, for instance, is sales process. So we've been working on not just a sales process, so we help them build out a really, really solid sales process. Now we're looking at how we can automate that with software. We're going to actually have templates and everything for them to just kind of plug and play into their business. They can automate that with software. Another area, for instance, is client experience. Like, have you ever had a tradie come to your house late or not show up at all, or just not tell you what's going on, or not communicate well? Everyone's had that happen to them, right? I had it happen to me last week. And so really looking at ways that we can help them to improve customer experience. Sometimes real coaching is supposed to be, I'll tell you what to do and you'll innately somehow figure out how to do it. Sometimes people just don't know how to do this stuff, right? Sometimes it's quite complex to do as well, right? Implementing an automated sales process, implementing an automated customer experience automation system is not always easy to do. One of the other big projects we've been doing, you guys kind of are aware of this as well, is our new metric system, which we've named ProfitMate. And it's basically something we can plug in for builders and tradies so they actually know what the score is. Because have you ever spoken to a builder or a tradie who doesn't know what their revenue was, or doesn't know what their gross profit margins are, or doesn't know what their cash flow is going to look like for the next couple of months, and all that kind of stuff? So really, we're out there trying to solve the problems that we can see are actually happening, and that's because we care.
It's really about increasing the exposure to those key figures and those key metrics, and getting clients to learn how to dance with them a bit, I suppose.
The first step is getting to understand them. When I talk about profit margins, for instance, what I find is there's a massive misunderstanding. Now, you're in the accounting kind of world, right? And so you understand what margins are. But there are a lot of people out there who are running businesses who don't understand the difference between markup and margin. Technically, if you look at a markup and you look at a margin, the dollar value is exactly the same. You could argue, well, hey, it's a 25% markup, it's a 20% margin, but the dollar value is exactly the same. But if they're getting those two things wrong and they're getting them mixed up, the implications if they're running a business that's doing a revenue of at least $1 million, well, they could be losing $50,000 without even knowing it. Sometimes it just comes back to those really key things, and even just knowing what to measure, knowing what it is on a weekly or a monthly basis or whatever the case is, but just really getting that understanding of what those numbers mean. Again, I know this because I made the mistake in my early years in business. I'm like, all right, I'm charging, I seem to be making money, but then, you get that aha moment of, hang on, I've just worked for the last 12 months. Where's all my money gone? I thought I'd made a profit, but there's no money left in my account. And so we really want to stop that. And that's what it's really all about. It's about giving people visibility so they actually know that they're profitable. There is actually money left in the account at the end of the week, every week.
So some good stuff on the horizon. Well, myself and the team at Business Lighthouse can absolutely attest to your services, Terence. You've been very instrumental in helping us clarify our value propositions and how that's going to filter down into our marketing and our big rebrand that we're kind of in the middle of. What's the best way for people to reach you to find out more about your services?
So the best place to go at the moment is the buildingprofit.co website. You'll find information about me and you can get in contact from there if you want to.
There you go. And we'll have links for those in the episode description. Terence Toh, StrategiQ Business Growth. I think you can add best podcast guinea pig ever to that work title. This has been thrilling, mate. I learnt some really interesting things about you. And I think everyone listening can appreciate what you've shared and the passion for what you do. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. And I've got to say, it's been a pleasure being your guinea pig, as you say, and a pleasure working with the team at Business Lighthouse as well. And I'm looking forward to what you guys achieve in the future. So thank you.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us on our very first episode of You in the World. We will be back in future with all kinds of interesting business owners and people that you may or may not have heard of. It's going to be a great time. So we hope you join us at some point in the future. Have a good one. Business Lighthouse are a group of passionate accounting professionals lighting the way to your financial future, working with small and medium businesses in retail and inventory, childcare, education, construction, and not-for-profit sectors. They strive to bring you peace of mind through understanding your cash flow, managing business risk, and helping you grow sustainably. Let Business Lighthouse calm the stormy seas of your business. Visit www.businesslighthouse.com.au to book a free consult today.